feel like creative recruitment is probably the hardest to cross-train. There's some people are born with this artistic eye.
How do you manage your time being hands-on whilst also giving the team what they need in terms of management?
I give myself a lot of grace. I know that I can't do it all, and I know I'm going to fail in some areas.
A lot of hiring managers don't see what goes on behind the scenes,
Correct.
What it takes to make a hire.
I'm a sucker for a growth story, so I love seeing growth.
How do you keep your team motivated in that environment?
I think it's really important to just be real with them and letting them know that there is somebody there to support them.
Hello and welcome to Hiring on All Cylinders. I'm Chris Abbas, your host, and today I'm joined by Beth Armstrong, talent leader at VaynerX, a creative and digital media agency. Hi Beth, how's it going?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm good. We just realized that we were almost identical.
Almost.
But you wore the blazer. So
I wore the blazer, so I didn't
you thought ahead. You knew that we'd be all in black.
Even the glasses are similar. The tortoise shell, like everything.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't reach you.
No. I'll just ruin the mic setup. Okay, so one of the things that's on everyone's minds at the moment, I'm hearing a lot of leaders are having to do more with less and run really lean teams. We've had this kind of COVID suppression where teams got laid off, that we had this boom and then another downturn last year. And people are very hesitant to spend, to increase headcount on their talent team and to invest because there's a lot of uncertainty happening. So I think it's on people's minds, and people are looking at ways that they can do this effectively. And I know that's something that you have experience with and have a lot of thoughts about. So I thought we could talk about that today.
Okay.
I guess just to start, what's your approach kind of running and like philosophy on running a lean team?
Well, I've only ever worked on lean teams, just the industry that I'm in. So my approach is always looking at the company, what their needs are, which I feel like everybody always starts with, but really going to what's the meat? Like, what do we really, really need? What do I need to focus on so I can help scale myself and get the work done as well. So there's many things that I would look at.
Yeah. The issue, is it like a common issue in media and digital agencies? You said it's the only place that you've worked in lean teams because of the industry. Is that common?
Yeah, I would say at least it's been my experience. So if you're lucky enough to work at like a holding company level, typically there is like a bigger talent acquisition team, but within the advertising agencies themselves, typically very small. And that's on talent acquisition side and also HR. So I've worked on HR teams where it's just one HR person and then me. Luckily now I'm working at a company that has a very robust team, but the talent acquisition function is new. It's only 3 years old.
Yeah.
So it really varies, but at the holding level, there's typically more.
And what do you think? So you've got a new team. How do you think about building a team when you're thinking about, you're kind of anchoring on that kind of lean approach?
It's a lot of reactionary up front, which is less than ideal, I would say. You always really want to be proactive, right? I would love to always start with like let's build core competencies and let's define these roles and how are they going to grow. But I'll use Vayner as my example because it's what I can speak to most recently. Is my partner and I were working, I had well over 100 roles on my plate at one time. He had roughly like 80 or so. And it was just time to scale. So really I had to find talent that could come in and handle multiple areas to recruit against. And I also need to dig down myself while also trying to scale. So I know a lot of leaders at some organizations have the opportunity to hire their entire team, and then they don't recruit as much. So they can focus in certain areas, focus on ops, focus on the business and financials. I don't get to do, I have to do all of that and find ways to stretch myself while also filling roles at the same time.
So I'm guessing it's really important for you to find super adaptable recruiters.
Yes.
Who can be thrown into lots of different situations, stakeholders, different types of roles.
Correct.
That's pretty hard to find.
Yeah.
Because recruiters like to specialize. They like to be in their own little lane. How have you found a successful way of finding those people?
I'm a really big advocate for, like, if you find a really good recruiter, they can recruit for anything, just takes them time to learn. So I try to focus on the area that I need them focused on most. So say like paid media. So I'll go and I'll find a recruiter that understands paid media, how to recruit against programmatic, search roles, etc. And then I'll introduce them and train them on other areas within the company. And you learn that by building out with the hiring leads, like how they define what top talent looks like. Our intake meetings are super helpful. And just having them shadow me, shadow my partner that I have as well, and just learn by doing.
So you pick a recruiter that has like a core skill set of a bulk of roles that you're already recruiting for and that will be consistently recruiting for, and then cross-train them.
Yep.
And has that been how you've approached all the hires in your team?
The majority, yeah. With the rare exception of creative. I feel like creative recruitment is probably the hardest to cross-train. There's some people are born with this artistic eye and you can't train it in others. So with creative recruitment, it's very niche. And that takes a certain person.
Yeah. They're looking at portfolios and having to say, is this the right kind of design or whatever? Yeah.
And you really have to tailor your eye. It's hard. Creative recruitment's really challenging because you have to tailor your eye to what your chief creative officer or whoever your creative lead is. And that's so hard because you obviously have like an artistic draw towards something. So you have to find somebody that can shift their perceptions to what is good by somebody else's standards.
You have to be able to see the work via your stakeholders' eyes.
Yes. Yep.
It's a real challenge.
Very challenging.
Yeah.
But so fun.
Yeah. I can imagine if it's something you enjoy, that could be really, really fun. And so another thing you mentioned there was, scaling this team and kind of building the plane whilst flying it and being still really hands-on whilst scaling and managing a team. And your team isn't small, it's 10 plus people.
Yeah.
And so how do you manage your time being hands-on whilst also giving the team what they need in terms of management? How have you built a structure around that?
Talentful provides flexible recruiting solutions to the world's most ambitious companies. Are you thinking about ways to add flexibility to your talent function? With recent market volatility and hiring set to return to growth mode in the near future, there's never been a better time to choose the right partner to help you scale. Talentful's embedded sourcing, recruiting, coordination, and talent advisory services have been trusted by the world's leading brands. Companies such as Atlassian, Microsoft, Expedia, Pinterest, Waymo, and more. Whether you're hiring across engineering, go-to-market, or G&A, Talentful has got you covered. To find out how Talentful can help you, visit talentful.com.
Lots of patience. I give myself a lot of grace. I know that I can't do it all, and I know I'm going to fail in some areas. And I think that's really something that I love about the company I'm with now is that they let you fail. And I just have to be okay with it. I can't be everywhere all at once. But helping to prioritize is the important thing to do. Obviously, I'm going to prioritize my team and make sure that they are functioning. So because they're the ones handling the day-to-day work, making sure that nothing falls. And I know that any roles that I need to fill have to be my priority. Any operations type work has to be put aside. Any work that I need to work with my stakeholders, my leadership teams. Those need to be prioritized. So typically it's like a give and take.
Yeah.
And then just having that clear communication with my leadership, my bosses, my managers. Like, this is what I'm doing. This is how we're moving forward. I have a goal. We may not reach that goal. And they're lax with that. So it's just like one day at a time.
That's great. And I know that one of the difficult things about running a lean team is if you're getting periods of high demand and there's lots of pressure, the understanding from the business that you've got a lean team. And a lot of hiring managers don't see what goes on behind the scenes,
Correct.
What it takes to make a hire. And all they care about is I want someone in seat and you're not giving it to me. How do you manage the partnership with your stakeholders whilst running a lean team? How have you evolved that over time? Because I think you've got two challenges in that you're a relatively new team and also lean. So can you maybe talk about that, how you manage that pressure for delivery?
It's communication and education. We're at a place now where we can actually we understand how long it takes to fill a position, which in the past we weren't able to do. But now we're like, okay, it takes X amount of days to fill this role. This is what we've seen in the past. This is what's happening in the market. So it's like, it's a constant education. All of our hiring managers communicate in different ways, which is also something that we're working to fix at the moment. But keeping that open line of communication, here's where we are. Here's what's happening. This is where we're going. These are the issues. This is why we're not moving as fast. Can you help? Like asking for help. And just keeping that open communication going. Has to be weekly, if not daily, depending on the importance of the role.
And I know that you mentioned some of your recruiters can have up to 20 roles each at times, which is probably double the amount of what people feel is optimal.
Yeah.
So how do your team members and how do you prioritize what are the most urgent positions? Like what? Because I know a lot of people that are working in high volume environments, and it's a tricky thing because everyone feels like their role's the most important to fill.
Yeah.
So do you have a process for prioritizing those critical roles?
Yeah. I mean, it varies, right? Because you could have many of the same role open, and in which case that's really nice because then you're like, all right, well, I've got five of the same, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're filled. But sometimes you have to work with in advertising, it's a little bit, it's different how the businesses work, but you have to work very closely with your project managers or your business leads, whoever has the most information on the schedule of the work that needs to get done. So if we have to kick off a certain project by a certain point, we try to prioritize the roles that are with the most urgent need. Sometimes that's a 2-week turnaround time, and that's just like an insane ask, So we try to that's how we try to prioritize it, is who has the most urgent need, when are things due.
How do you verify that need? Because I can imagine some hiring managers maybe exaggerate the need, or maybe not.
Well, we work with the project managers for timelines. Okay. So they have a pretty good understanding of like when things actually kick off. But you're right. The hiring managers, like the most senior business leads, are always like, we need it now, fill it today. Let's have an everyday chat. But our project managers are very level-headed and give us like a very realistic view of the timeline for each project and what's going on.
Okay, so you work through project deadlines and timelines?
Yes, yeah, occasionally, yes. Okay.
That's really interesting. And in terms of reporting the work that you're doing, because I know that as a new team, having that frequent communication to the business and showing people what you're doing and the wins and also the challenges builds that trust over time and kind of builds the understanding of why you're there. Yeah. How have you built that kind of reporting framework, and how do you like report up to the business?
I would say it's still in development at this time. Our platforms that we use, the data isn't really clean, so we're actually in the middle of doing a lot of cleanup. And so what we're doing is just reporting back to our business leads, but also our departmental heads, letting them know how many roles have been filled, what's still open, how long it's taking to fill them at the moment, just because we know that's the cleanest data we have. Sure. At some point, we'd like to start doing a little bit more. So once all of that is done, and then we have a monthly email that goes out to our CEO, just letting him know some observations, some holdups, turnaround data, quarterly data, things like that.
And is the CEO engaged with that? Is that
Yeah, he's really connected in the talent that's coming in and out of the company, and helping us to understand where we're trying to go.
It's awesome that you have that level of visibility the team does.
Yes. Yeah.
That's great. And through these kind of peaks, troughs of development, of demand that you have, being so lean, do you ever use like outside vendors, or have you used anything other than just your permanent team to supplement, or is this all done by in-house?
It's all done in-house. Occasionally, someone will be very sneaky and work with an external recruiter. And we're not allowed to use those unless we're given authorization by our finance department. It has to be signed off by several other people. So it's just us hanging on.
Yeah. I know those sneaky hiring managers. When I used to work in agencies, I used to try and find those sneaky hiring managers.
I know. They all do.
Yeah. So how do you, is there a way of preventing that? Is it always going to happen? Because I know that, how do you get that under control as an in-house?
Managing the external recruiters trying to come in?
Yeah, or hiring managers using them, I guess.
So it gets stopped at the finance stage, because we have to work very closely with finance to get everything approved. So typically it's flagged pretty early on. And then sometimes it comes my way and I'll be like, hold up, what's going on? But yeah, it's flagged early on in our process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So it doesn't make it to the
finale. No, very rarely.
Yeah. Okay. Poor recruiter.
Sorry, external recruiters.
Okay. And so I think I know what the answer is here, but it's worth touching on.
Oh God.
Do you use any tools or automations or any other methods that have helped your lean team with efficiency and optimization?
I mean, we have an ATS system, and we do have LinkedIn Recruiter.
Okay.
We're now potentially getting other tools to do some automation, which I'm very excited about. So I'm working with somebody internally now to help us build like a really beautiful CRM and get some drip campaigns going and all kinds of like fun like automation tools. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed and being nice to everybody that holds the money at the company so that hopefully it gets approved. But I've worked at other agencies where I haven't had an ATS system. I've only had Recruiter Lite or no Recruiter LinkedIn access at all. And that's been super challenging and scrappy, which I'm on board for.
Yeah.
I like being scrappy.
A little bit of tools though. Give me some tools.
I do love the tools, especially for the data piece. It's just so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A good ATS. I mean, so you were using spreadsheets in that instance?
Yeah. If I don't have an ATS, I'm using spreadsheets. I'm using like Google, Forms and like all kinds of stuff.
And so when you're in this situation where you've got very limited budget, because I think we hear a lot about companies like the bigger enterprises that have a decent amount of spend to buy all these kinds of tools. We don't speak to, and it's not highlighted as much. There's lots of people who do have, lean teams and are thinking about if they are to spend money, how to prioritize that spend and what's going to give the most return on investment. Yeah. So how do you think about that when, let's say this tool you're talking about being built or whatever way you decide to spend the money that's apportioned to the talent team, is there a way that you look at that?
Yeah. I mean, I would say you have to go with, you need to find the people, right? So you have to spend the money on Recruiter, like LinkedIn Recruiter. Recruiter Lite is a lovely product. If you don't have tons of money, it limits your access, but it's lovely. LinkedIn Recruiter is like the best. There's other platforms out there, but like I would say LinkedIn, you would agree, is probably the most used.
There's lots of other platforms out there, but if you look at where people's hires are coming from, like 60% upwards is LinkedIn Recruiter.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. And then you need a good ATS. You need a place to store all of your applicants. You need something that's going to give you data. And if you have an ATS that gives you a CRM, it's fantastic. I would say like you need to prioritize those two tools at least.
Yeah.
And then once you get a little bit more money, if you can optimize your team and help them in some way by cutting down the amount of sourcing or outreach that's happening, because it's all very manual, very time consuming, that'll help with your numbers of outreach and time to hire, time to fill, whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So like once you've got the basics in place, how can you supercharge your team?
Exactly.
And take away all the stuff that they don't like doing?
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, that's the goal, right?
Yeah,
Like you want to like continuously optimize your team and see where the gaps are. So, and then getting those extra toys are like so fun.
Yeah. It's a really interesting time because I think that the last year or so, a lot of leaders have probably realized they overdid it on the tools section.
Yeah.
And they got too much they didn't really need and they weren't using, and they weren't getting a lot of engagement and usage out of people. But now I feel there's some really impactful tools coming to market, especially with AI and automation.
Yeah.
That really have the ability to take away a lot of admin time from recruiters and drive efficiency. So it's going to be really interesting where leaders start spending their money.
Yeah.
Because I think there was just so much going on that people wanted to try out.
Yeah.
But people are starting to see where the actual returns are coming from now. And I think it is stuff like, coordination, like if you could automate coordinating interviews and all that back and forth that happens, the sourcing element, note taking, even simple things like that, can not only improve the experience and maybe lead to better results, but also maybe means you have to have a smaller team, or can mean you have a smaller team,
right,
and save money there.
Oh, and if I should mention social media. There's nothing better, nothing more free than organic.
Yeah.
than organic media. So, I mean, just getting your employer brand out there is, it's essentially free.
Yeah.
And
you've obviously got your CEO has a huge brand. Does that make a big impact on the application pool?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. The applications that we get in are hundreds.
It's hard to beat that when the leader has such a big personal brand.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's going to be the future of a lot of businesses, actually, that are led by people who built their brand first and have this big distribution channel, and then start a business that they can just, they can use that channel for.
Yep.
Super cool. And so we talked a lot about, obviously it's tough and there's lots of challenges with running a lean team, but what would you say the biggest advantages are in running a lean team?
Biggest advantages? I would say I'm a sucker for a growth story. So I love seeing growth, and it's growth within my team, my individual recruiters who I'm with weekly, helping them grow, take on challenges, etc. But then you also get to see the growth within the organization as well, a little bit more closely, because you're more tied to bottom level. Is that the right term?
Hands on, you're
just hands on across the board from bottom to top, and so you're able to see it a little bit more clearly rather than be just solely top level, and you have to have somebody report up to you. So you're able to see everything.
Yeah, it's really cool. And we've talked about how having a lean team can create a lot of pressure.
Yes.
And you got to hit these deadlines, and you've got to fill these projects, or we don't make revenue, we can't start the project. And you've got a lot of demand from hiring managers and a lot of pressure there. It can have a toll on people, potentially. They can feel stressed or they get worked up about it. And this last 3 years has been really difficult for recruiters in general.
Yeah.
How do you keep your team motivated in that environment? And look after the well-being of those folks?
Seeing them as people first. I think it's really important to just be real with them. Making sure that they are taking the time off, helping them in any way that I can to take some of the ease off if they need like a roll off their plate, or if I can give them a break and take a couple interviews for them. I try to take care of them if I can. And just seeing them as a person, I think is really, really helpful. And letting them know that there is somebody there to support them. Just continuously being open with their hiring managers about the pressure that's going on, you know, and how we can better work together to kind of, it's not just all on the recruiter, you know, we can open it up to the team as well, to help ease some of that.
Yes, team sport for sure.
It's a team sport, absolutely.
And so to wrap stuff up, the question I ask everyone is, what are you most excited about in regard to the future of hiring and talent acquisition?
All the toys. I'm really excited about all the fun products and platforms and tools that are coming out, and I'm very hopeful that I'll get to play with some of them in the future. So I'm really excited about. The toys. Cool. Yeah.
And so if people want to find you, where can they find you? LinkedIn or websites, or where can they find your careers page?
I am on LinkedIn. Our careers page is at VaynerMedia.com. That's it.
That's it. So on LinkedIn or VaynerMedia.com.
Yep.
So thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Catch you later.